Hello, this is Sean, and this is an introduction to the Unreal Development Kit. In this video, I'm going to go over the interface, navigation, UDK viewing modes, the builder brush, the grid, the philosophy of constant optimization, which is used inside of game engines, and also talk about the content browser, which will hold all the assets that you will want to use inside of your game. So let's get started. To launch UDK, there's the UDK icon, or you can find it in under your programs. You can also download it. It's free to download from the internet. If you go to udk.com, it'll take you to this website, and you can go to under downloads and download the February UDK version, which just came out. It was just released. So here it is. It's PC only, and it's a large download that'll get you started. Upon loading UDK, you'll see a screen that usually will populate a level, and you can start fresh or you can build right onto this default level, which has a sky dome and sort of some assets already pre-built in with lighting. So let's talk about navigation. Navigation is done with the mouse. The right mouse will rotate you. The left mouse will track you in and out. You can also use the scroll wheel to track in and out. And you can control the speed of your tracking and movement up here, the camera movement speed. So when it's all the way up to the top, you can move and fly through your level very quickly. When it's at the bottom, it gives you a much more fine control in terms of your movement. Left and right, you have to scrub your mouse quite a bit more. There's also sort of in terms of navigation, you can also use the same keys that you would if you were playing a first-person shooter. So W, A, S, and D will let you navigate around your scene. So that's kind of nice. In addition, you can also select an asset in your scene and hit the home key, and that will snap you right to the asset. It's the same as in Maya if you hit the F key in Maya. So let's also talk about viewing modes in UDK. In UDK, the different viewing modes are available up at the top here. And they're very similar to Maya. There's like a couple wireframe modes. So Alt and a number key will shift between these different modes. So here's a mode where it's unlit, and here's a lit mode, and here's detailed lighting, and here's lighting only. So if your graphic card can handle it, the detailed lighting is a nice mode to work in, because it'll sort of give you a visualization of how things are looking, where the shadows are falling, etc. Okay, so now that we've gone over that, let's talk about the builder brush. So this red brush, or you can change the shape. There's these different brushes here. You could sort of create any number of primitives. So here's a cylinder, here's a sphere, or a tetrahedron. And you can get more details on these objects by right-clicking. So you can say what number of detail you want this tetrahedron to be. You can also specify the radius. So you could turn it into a cube. Here we are with a cube. You could even make it a hollowed-out cube. One of the things that you're going to notice as well is the numbers that are inside of these objects. The game engines typically prefer powers of 2 in terms of the size or the numbers that they're all based on. So you'll notice a lot of powers of 2, 16s, 256s. You could make this 1024 by 1024. And it's one of the things that, in terms of building assets for games as well, is it's often done by building on the grid. So this is the builder brush, as I mentioned, and this is one of the things that makes UDK really useful as a game engine, is the ability to rapidly white box your level. So what is white boxing? Whiteboxing is the ability to drop in temporary assets as placeholders and rapidly texture them and visualize and play through the level to see how your level would look. So let's do that. You'll do that by using the builder brush, and you can add Control A will add a volume where that builder brush stood. And transform, as you can notice that this has a transform tool much like Maya's transform tool. And by hitting the space bar, you can toggle through rotation and scale. Those tools are also available right at the top here. And you can also do a local or world transform components. So one of the things to also notice is by default the scaling is set to uniform scaling, which sort of forces you to look up at the top here and notice that you can do a non-uniform scaling by selecting this button. And so now I could sort of transform this brush and hit Control A to add another brush. Control A. Let's add a few others. Let's add a cylinder. And that's a little large for what we've been creating. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to change the outer radius to 64, hit enter, and make the height, which is the Z here, 512. So now we've got a cylinder, and let's make that 12-sided cylinder. So let's hit build. Now we've got the cylinder built. Make sure your objects will connect to the ground plane is hitting the end key. So I've been doing that. I'm going to hit Control A to add that object. So let's just build a couple of those in our scene. So what else can we do with whiteboxing? We can rapidly texture these objects. And these objects are not meshes. They're known as BSPs, binary spatial partitions. So a way of rapidly visualizing. And one of the things that's great about them is they're very easy to texture. You can select faces, or you can right click and select a number of, like say, select matching brush, and that would select the whole object. So how do we get textures on these objects? Well, the final thing I wanted to quickly discuss was the content browser. And that's accessible from here. Control-Shift-F is also the hotkey to get it. And inside, you can see a number of filters for the different types of assets, which I'll talk about in the next video. And you can also go in and get materials here. So here's a number of pre-built materials that come with the engine. So you can drag materials onto objects, or you can select a material, select an object, and right-click and say, Apply Material. So you can see the materials applying, and it starts to render in real time. You can see that it's got a bump map associated with it, so we could do the same thing. Select surfaces. We could also use some of these hotkeys are very useful. So, for example, matching brush is Shift-B, and right-click, Apply Material. So we could do that to this object right here. Shift-B, Apply Material. Let's apply a different material. So there we go. All right, so that's and let's in the final step, let's quickly show how to play or to sort of move around this level. You can right-click at any point and say Play from here. There's also you can go in here and play in viewport, which is also Alt F8. So let's right-click and play from here. So you can see that even though it says the lighting needs to be rebuilt, we can sort of visualize and move around this level a little bit. And there's already collision built into some of these objects, and you can notice that they're casting shadows. So this is a good start and a good place to stop. Thanks for watching.